So how old were you when you first experienced like paranormal encounters and
I kind of want to start this off with something. Most of my experiences, I haven't told them to many people,
okay.
and and that's because most of them happened in my hometown. And the people in my hometown, they're either really religious or they're like atheists or something. So they think that the paranormal is not real. So when I told a few people about what I've went through, they're like, "Oh, that's not real. You're just imagining it. You probably have some mental illness or something like that."
It's a very common thing to get told, yeah.
Yeah. So my first experience that I remember is probably back when I was like in between the ages of 10 and 13, kind of like that middle school age.
Okay.
And I was at a family friend's house. My parents dropped me off there well, they were away for the night. Family friends have two daughters, and I'm kind of like in the middle of them. There's one older than me, and then there's one younger. And they love to tell me like spooky stories. We would like watch like Are You Afraid of the Dark and Truth or Scare and those type of shows on TV. So we enjoyed doing that. At night, they told me a story from like a few months back, saying that they went to a graveyard across the street from their house, and their house is a little bit. It's kind of weird how their house is situated. It's like built into a kind of like a hill. So like the front door of the house is like on top of the hill, but their basement has like a huge window, and it looks out to where the cemetery is across the street. It's kind of like in the back alley kind of way. That's the local cemetery.
That's kind of eerie.
Yeah. And so they told me a few months back before this happened that they were out in the cemetery. They were doing some things that maybe they shouldn't have been doing, being really disrespectful and like jumping on the graves and that kind of thing. I don't know why they thought that was a good idea. I think they just thought that they can get like some sort of activity to see if something will happen, that kind of thing. It was dark outside and they had like flashlights, and then they said they in the distance they saw a man walking his dog. The creepy part is like because of the stigma that the people in my town have, nobody goes to the cemetery at night. So I thought it was a bit weird. And so that night they decided, well, how about we go do that and go to the graveyard at night and see what happens, see if something happens. And I'm like, well, I'm not gonna be doing anything disrespectful. I let them do their thing, whatever they wanted to do. And then it was a school night, so we went back to the house and we went to bed. I don't know why this happened, why we decided to do this, but me and the older girl decided to sleep in the living room. I don't know why we did that. I can't remember the reason why. I woke up in the middle of the night. I look out the window and I see a figure walk by the window. And it looked like a man walking a dog.
It's like a very descriptive kind of like normally when people say they see a shadow figure or something walk by the window, you don't normally hear something like a guy with like a top hat or a trench coat.
Thing was, I could see right through him. It was like a misty figure. So I knew it was not like a person walking by the window.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember every single detail too. He had like short dark hair. He was wearing like a 80s style like sports jacket. It was white with like a black stripe down the sleeve, and he was wearing like dark black pants, and he was holding a leash which looked like there was a dog attached to it. I couldn't really see the dog. It was like in the shape of a dog, but it was more like a blob to me, and that's kind of what it looked like. But the man himself was like really detailed.
And that's also crazy because you actually like most of the time when someone sees like a figure, they'd never actually have like a full description of what he looked like. They'll just tell. Normally we get, it's too dark, couldn't see him too well, but you actually have like a full description of the person you saw walk by the window.
Yeah, yeah, and he was like 6 feet tall. It was like average size.
I'm 5'7". Like I'm
Yeah.
I'm very
Well, I'm
short.
I'm I'm saying like
When did this take place?
the mid 2000s
Okay,
maybe.
so yeah, to see someone dressed in like 80s clothes would probably be a little bit off-putting, or like just you could just tell it's not like it doesn't match what normally people are wearing today.
Yeah, and I looked up, like, I've been into that graveyard before, and I like looking at the dates of when the people passed away, and a lot of them were died in the 80s too. So it doesn't
Okay,
really surprise me.
yeah, and to see him by the graveyard and then see him by the window, maybe he followed you guys home.
Likely, yeah. And then the next morning when we were getting ready for school, I told them what I saw with every single detail that I just told you. And they gave me a look. They looked at me like wide-eyed, and then they looked at each other, and then they looked back at me, and they said, "Cheyenne, that's the same guy we seen in the graveyard." And they were just the way they described it to me was very vague. So I think they were just trying to scare me with that story. But then I see it with in full detail, and they're like, "Oh, wow, she saw it too."
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I mean, I wonder if there was anybody in that graveyard who was buried with their dog.
I don't know. I didn't see I didn't see a face. I saw the side profile, so I didn't see any face. So it'd be hard to find out.
Identify the guy. Yeah, rather interesting experience. That is a good way to start it off, I gotta say.
That's kind of how I got into the paranormal too, because I started like watching more documentaries about it and trying to figure out like what was that I saw that night, because I still don't understand. I still don't know. I still remember it like it happened like a week ago. I still
When he
remember all those details.
when he walked by the window, was he like a good distance away from the window, or was he like really close to the
He was
window?
like right up by the window.
So he was walking like in the yard.
Yeah, he was like walking through their backyard. He went from the right to the left, and then disappeared on the other side somewhere.
Moments like that, you just don't know.
But I think it creeped them out. Like it creeped them out so much that I still went to their house like afterwards and slept over and that kind of thing. And they don't go to the graveyard anymore. They said they never did. They won't go back to it. And
Have
at night, their blinds on that window stay closed.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah. No, I mean after that, yeah, I would expect them to stay close for sure. Have you guys ever gone back to that graveyard?
Well, I live too far away now.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't personally. We don't really know anybody that is buried there. We have a one bunch of graveyards around our town that are kind of like in the middle of nowhere.
It's weird to me that it showed up back up at your friend's house. It's just maybe it was attached to them more than anybody else, but it would make sense to me that it was more attached to them.
Well, I think it's because they were being disrespectful, and it was trying to say like, "Hey, don't do that, or else like I'm going to come to your house," like it kind of did.
I never hear a lot of stories to where I get full detailed descriptions about what the person or what the entity looked like. That's a first in a while, I gotta say.
But that's something I don't talk about to other people because they're like, "Oh, that didn't happen. You're crazy. You're just seeing things."
And that I feel like that's such a, and I mean, actually, Gabby the other day we're talking about that a little bit too. It's like where people think you're just looking for attention, or you're just something's wrong with you. You're just seeing things. You're making up lies. There's just a lot of, and I think there's still a lot of people today who just kind of ignore it just to ignore it because they don't want to acknowledge that there could be something else beyond death.
Yeah, and I think that's what most people in my town think too. They think, "Oh, if you die, you just go to heaven. And that's it." Like they don't think that people or spirits can get stuck in this world. And they think if they do, then it's a demonic entity or something like that.
I have said it plenty of times where you could see just a normal person sitting in your house, walk by your house, a spirit that maybe just be a little girl or a little boy or anything along those lines, and in reality they may not be that. They might be something a bit more sinister, trying to lure people in. There's plenty of stories about spirits who just have unfinished business on this planet, so they'll stick around and try to, feel fulfilled before they move on. I think it is a scary thought though. I've thought about it several times. Like, what if I die and I'm stuck here? In all honesty, if I do believe in heaven and I do believe in hell, so I want to go to heaven if I die. I don't want to stick around. After I'm done, I'm done. I just want to be done with this planet. Yeah, that's how my mind works. It's like I've endured it enough. If I get hit by a train, if I someone kidnaps me, ties like a bunch of rocks to me, and throws me to the bottom of the ocean, I'm done. I'm tapping out. That's literally one of the worst things that could ever happen to me. So I just wanted to wash my hands of it and just be like, all right, Earth was not for me. I just the idea of limbo, or have you ever seen the Insidious movies, The Further, like a world that's happening around our world? And I actually do believe this is actually happening. I actually do believe in that a little bit. That there is a world around our world that we just cannot see.
Yeah,
That's for
like
like
different dimensions.
yeah,
Kind
like
of.
for spirits and stuff who may be trapped here. I mean, could you imagine the thought for a second of like a woman that you cannot see, who can see you, and she is like right in your face, like in my face right now, and just screaming at me to help her, but I will never know. I just will never know. That to me, that's a scary thought because you never know what you're looking at and who's looking back at you. Getting back to your like personal experiences.
And this happened in the original town site of my hometown, which now a historical museum. But at the
Wow.
time, in the early 1900s, it started off as a really small town in a valley, and it was like that for a few years. They had like a mining and stuff like that. It was a mining town, basically. Over the years, it grew up over the hill where the town is now. They were starting to build the railroad, and people decided to move out of town in the valley, I guess I'm going to call it. Don't know how to explain it. And they start moving up the hill to where the train tracks were. And then they abandoned the buildings that were in the valley. So they stayed abandoned for like 80 years or so, 80 years.
Okay, so it was kind of like a ghost town kind of area.
It was kind of like a ghost town. Yeah, nobody just lived there, even though it was like right next to where the new town is. So it happened in that area. It was owned by some family friends of ours. First, they were living in this old farmhouse. It was like a big 5 or 6 bedroom farmhouse, and they changed it into an inn or a bed and breakfast kind of thing. They were trying to make money off of it. And then they took the other buildings that were still standing. Some of them just fell over because they were so old, and they made it into a historical museum. And so the buildings that are still there is like a schoolhouse, a church, a few of the cabins that people lived in, a place called a stopping house. That's kind of like where people would kind of gather and hang out, have drinks, that kind of thing. And they still use that today. So that's one of the only places that has power next to the farmhouse. That's the inn. And then there's a hospital, which creeps me out, and that's kind of where this story took place. I've always been going to this place ever since I was a kid. It's kind of like a big venue kind of thing. People have weddings and stuff there. Went to this place. I've been going to it for years. I've been in all the buildings. The feeling I got from this hospital was the feeling like somebody lives there, so I shouldn't go in it. Because it was such a small town. The hospital was really small and it had a living quarters for the doctor. So it was kind of like a house slash hospital at the same time.
Wow.
But yeah, even though I
Oh.
was like, oh, nobody actually lives in there, it's just an empty building, part of me is like, well, somebody does live there. Don't go in it without permission. And that's the kind of feeling I always got from it. People would be like, why don't you want to go in there? Like, when you have permission from the owner to go in. I'm like, yeah, but I don't really want to. Like, I don't know. I didn't understand why I was feeling that way, and hard
Like,
to explain how I felt. How I felt.
there's like several places on this planet that are like beacons for, I think, spirit activity. Hospitals are certainly one of those things. Asylums are another one. Graveyards are another one. So much that happens at hospitals, asylums, and graveyards.
It's not even that's just the beginning of it, because I've been into the other buildings too, and I don't feel anything from them. It's just like a normal building to me, but that hospital just creeped me out for some reason. Probably 16, 17-ish. I had a school project with my friend. We had to do like some kind of school project on a historical place for our class, and we chose this place. And so we decided one day we were going to go down there and kind of scope out the area, see where we wanted to to talk about. We were gonna do like a video thing, so we are gonna film it too. But we were just kind of deciding what places we wanted to look at so it wouldn't be so long and that kind of thing. And so my friend decided, let's go into the hospital. I want to see that. I want to see what's in there. And in there, we propped the door open. They have like a door stopper that you can prop the door open. And we're slowly like just walking around, kind of seeing what's in there. They had all the old hospital stuff. It's kind of walking around looking at that. And then suddenly I get a cold, my left arm gets cold. Like somebody turned the air conditioning on, and that place has no air conditioning, no electricity. There was no window open. The windows were actually sealed shut. And as we were walking further in, my other arm gets cold. But I kind of just shook it off, and we continued walking around, and we got to the door, and we were trying to figure out what we were going to do, and then the door slammed shut behind us, and we propped that door open.
Yeah, with the door stopper, right?
Yeah, and it wasn't like a slam. I guess that wasn't the right word to use. It slammed, it closed quite hard, but it wasn't like a slam. And we went out screaming because that terrified us, because we were like, we swear that we opened that door and we propped it open with the door stopper.
Like something maybe like move the door stopper and then it just kind of shut. And
I don't know. There was nobody else there.
No, that's the weird part. There was no other reason why it should have shut.
We ran out. We didn't go back. We decided to like go to the old. There's like an old barn there, kind of in the like little pasture area. That was like on the verge of falling over, but we're like, let's go to that barn and just kind of chill out, because that freaked us out. And as we were walking up to this barn, my friend says, I'm starting to get like a headache, like in the back of my head. And right when she said that, I started feeling that. It was like a pressure behind our ear, kind of, and it was causing a headache. And then slowly I started feeling like almost like a choking sensation. So that was just a little bit strange.
It kind of sounds like something was irritated.
I don't know.
Something definitely did not want you there.
That's all I could call it, is weird. I don't know.
You would think if it was nice, though, it would be a more welcoming kind of thing and not like get the heck out.
Yeah, it didn't feel like bad or anything like that. I don't know.
It was just weird how it shut the door behind you, or like just shut the door, and then you started getting headaches. It makes no sense unless it was really kind of just annoyed.
After I went home, I told my mom about the whole barn thing with the headache. My mom's kind of a skeptic, but she's always talking about like wanting to go to haunted houses and sleep in them, see if anything happens, kind of thing. So she's kind of, I guess she's a little bit open-minded to it, but right now nothing has happened, so she doesn't really believe in it right now. But I told her about that barn situation, and she said, well, did you know when the previous owners owned the place, they had their friend come out who says, she didn't say she was a medium, but she said she was really sensitive. When she walked by that barn, she said somebody hung themselves in it. And so that kind of made sense of why I was feeling the headache and the pressure around my neck. Like a noose kind of thing.
It's always creepy to hear stories that involve like how someone died, and then you start slowly kind of feeling the same kind of whatever they felt in the moment of their death. That always creeps me out.
It's just weird because my friend felt the same way.
They hung themselves outside of a hospital.
Well, no, it was in a barn, like on the same property.
Okay. Was your mom around when the person actually had committed suicide?
No, I don't think so. I think nobody really knows, because nobody ever talks about this kind of stuff, so nobody understands. Like,
it's just a little town of like a bunch of skeptics, really.
Pretty much, yeah.
Who just kind of ignore it, and it is what it is.
Yeah. So they would just tell me, "Oh, you just have a headache. That's all it is. Like, it's nothing."
I'm almost curious, like if that's documented anywhere, like the hanging of that person.
The farmhouse is the only house that has like an actual history of something tragic happening that actually happened. This was like the same week too. This is like a few days after that. And this is when me and my friend and another girl, we were going to start doing our project. We decided to do it in the farmhouse, and we got permission from the owner to like go in and film. They had no guests there. It was just us. The farmhouse, I guess it was the cousin of the previous owner that actually passed away in the house. It was a little girl. I think her mom got a doctor to come out to give her some type of needle for something. I have no idea what for. They didn't say. But the needle was not sterilized properly, and she got a very bad infection. And I don't know what kind of disease she had from it, but it was like a progressive disease. So it didn't do anything to her right away, but she did get paralyzed and she couldn't speak. The mom ended up leaving her daughter in a crib, and it was like one of those wheeling cribs, I guess, back in those days, where she could be wheeled from room to room. She spent most of her days in a crib. And then at the age of 15, she passed away.
There's a lot of emotion with that.
Yeah,
Like there's a
yeah.
lot, like years and years of just, being, I mean,
Confined to a crib
yeah,
at the age of
sorrow,
at the age of 15.
watching people around you have fun while you're stuck. I mean, ugh.
Yeah. So that's the actual like true story. Everybody knows that story. Everyone knows it's real. But yeah, and so ever since then, people, especially like people from out of town, been having weird experiences in this place. I think he was a construction worker and he was working in town. He decided to stay at this place, and he was the only one staying there. And he asked the owner, I have to get up at a certain time. Can you please give me a wake up call? And they were like, okay, sure. I think it was like early morning, not late at night. Early morning, and he looks over and there's a girl standing at the foot of his bed staring at him. She had like dark hair and a blue dress. And people call this spirit the lady in the blue dress, because people have seen her looking out the windows and stuff like that. Locals don't talk about this thing, but other people who have visited have seen her.
And this is like a woman, right?
She's a teenager. She passed away at 15.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so yeah, I guess, yeah, you could consider a young lady who
Yeah,
wearing a
they kind
blue.
of call her young lady sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
It gets confusing. I think some people perceive her as a young woman too. I know she died in a blue dress.
Oh, well, that's pretty much exactly right on the money then.
Seen her staying at the foot of the bed, and he went to check the time because he was like, "What is this? Like, what's happening? What time is it?" And then when he looks back, she's gone.
Whew.
And then a few minutes later, his room phone rings, and that's his actual wake up call. That was the owner calling him for his wake up call, and he never said anything about it. He left, but the owners know about this because apparently he was telling his friends about it wherever he was living at the time, and those friends knew friends of the owner, so they kind of
It
heard
just, yeah,
through a
got it back
grapevine.
around.
Yeah. So that's how they know. And the owners were like, we never heard of this. He didn't say anything about this.
You probably didn't want no one thinking he was crazy,
Probably.
because it sounds like that's what the town would have thought.
And then, but the owners were a little bit skeptical too. Well, we never had experiences. Like, we lived in this house for so many years. It's like, well, maybe you do have experiences, but you just don't want to share them.
Yeah, or yeah, just you ignore them for obvious reasons.
Yeah. The house got passed down to the son of those owners that were dealt with that man that had that experience. New owners now were friends of my mom. So they know all about the history and that kind of stuff too. They know about these stories. They don't exactly believe them. So the one day they were having like a private party with just like family friends and people that we know. They didn't have any guests. The one friend brought her two kids. One was like, I think he was like 5 or 6 years old, and then the other one was just a baby. And there was no other kids there. But the little boy was just like, I want to go do something. I want to go play. And so the owner says, well, you can go into the house. There might be toys upstairs. And so he goes, okay. He goes upstairs, and he was up there for maybe about 15 minutes or so. He comes back down outside, and he goes to his mom. He's really, really upset about something. So his mom asked him, what happened? Well, I went upstairs to see if there was like any toys I could play with, and a girl said she wanted to come play with me, but I told her she was too old to play with me. He goes, the girl upstairs, she was wearing a blue dress, she had brown hair. She asked me to play, but I told her she's too old because she's 15. I'm only 5.
I was about to ask you, did they go upstairs to like check and see if there was somebody up there? Or did they
Well, they
just
were
literally just accepted, like, okay. That's probably a ghost. Like,
Well, they were pretty sure that there was no other kids at that party. Yeah, I know this little boy.
mm-hmm.
I knew him for a while. He liked to play with children his own age, not anyone too much older. So that's why he kept saying, "Oh, she was too old to play with me."
Makes sense.
Yeah, that was kind of creepy. My mom told me that one because she was actually there when this kid was explaining that. She thought, Cheyenne might like this story. It's a little bit creepy.
Definitely, definitely. It's like they kind of somewhat. It's not like they're completely oblivious. They obviously, I think they choose these. Some people around there just choose not to give it acknowledgement because a little kid who's like 6, you say like about 5 or 6,
5 or 6 or something like that.
If a little kid comes up to you and gives you a descriptive story like that, what are you supposed to think? Like,
and it fits in with the other stories too, like the blue dress.
And it's not like this kid, is listening in on phone calls and shit. So like, he shouldn't have known that there was a girl in a blue dress in that house. It just to me, it's just I'd be a little bit nervous too. I'd be like, okay, well, that's a ghost automatically.
Yeah, so those are the experiences I've heard from other people. Going back to what I was doing there, me and my friends were filming for our school project, and we walked into the room where people have seen the lady in blue in the window, and I kept getting the feeling that like somebody was like watching us come like from a distance. I looked out the doorway and I didn't see anybody. I'm like, why do I feel like somebody is following us? This is where it really creeps me out. I go home that night and I wake up at around, I don't know, 2:30, 3 a.m., somewhere around there. And I'm hearing a woman call my name.
No, thank you.
And it sounds like really distant from almost like up the stairs. My room was in the basement and my parents' room was like upstairs. It sounded like a woman was yelling at me from the top of the stairs. And at first I thought it was my mom. But I'm like, why would my mom be yelling at me at the top of the stairs at 3 a.m.?
Yeah.
Like, if she really needed to speak to me, she would come downstairs and come into my room. So I kind of got curious. I went upstairs and I went into my mom's room and she's fast asleep.
So your heart probably sank.
The night after we were in that house, when I felt like somebody was like watching us, and it was a woman's voice, and I tried to go back to sleep, but I kept hearing that sound, like that woman's voice saying Cheyenne, Cheyenne, like that.
Cheyenne. Cheyenne.
And then as I listened to it, I'm like, that's not my mom's voice. That's somebody else.
Wait,
That's
so
it
continued to call your name?
It continued. And it got closer.
So you're telling me you hear it around 2:30 to 3 in the morning. You go upstairs, you check on your mom, she's fast asleep. You're like, okay. So you go back downstairs into your room, and then you start hearing her continue to call your name.
As I try to go back to sleep, yes.
Well, the fact that you can try to go to sleep when that's going down.
I
would have been crying.
Sleep that much.
I'd have been crying. I'm not even gonna lie.
It gets even weirder though. It gets so much weirder because after I tried to go back to sleep and I keep hearing it, it sounds like it's outside my bedroom door. We just built that house like a year before, so it's a relatively new house. That's what creeps me out about it. So something definitely like followed me.
It was probably the girl.
Yeah, I think it was. But I kept hearing it like behind my door, so I opened my door and nobody's there.
You have guts. Because there ain't no
really
way.
Scared. I was more confused. I'm like, why am I hearing a voice? Outside of my bedroom door is kind of like our little living area. And in our living area, we have this antique chair that used to be my grandma's that she had for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
And it has it's like a spring loaded armchair kind of thing. It has a bunch of springs in it. It's not really a rocking chair, but it does kind of rock back and forth. And when it does rock, it makes a really loud creaking noise. Well, when I tried to go back to bed again, I started hearing that chair creaking back and forth really loudly. And at first I thought maybe it was my sister, because sometimes my sister, if she can't sleep, she'll come to the basement and watch TV for a while and then go back to bed. So I thought it was maybe her doing that. So I decided I'm gonna go out and see. And right before I opened my bedroom door, the chair completely stops. There's no creaking. I opened the door. Nobody's there. I'm thinking, well, if it was my sister, I would be hearing her march up the stairs, and I didn't hear that.
At what point were you like, this is kind of fucked up?
I mean, I was already at that point because I had no idea what was happening.
Did you wake anybody up? Did you like freak out?
Nobody woke up. Nope.
Because at some point I'd have been like ready to probably leave the house at some point, because like that's next level. I wouldn't say it was poltergeist activity, but
No.
it was definitely something trying to make itself known.
Something was trying to get my attention, and then I tried to go back to sleep again. I this time I turned on my TV. I'm trying to drown out the sound because I kept hearing the same voice over and over again outside my door. And this time I heard the knob on my door kind of wiggle a little bit, and then I hear knocking on my door. Somebody's actually knocking on my door. And I was able to sleep after that. I didn't get much sleep, but I was able to finally get to sleep. But I still continued to hear my name being called, and I kind of just decided to ignore it for that. That was just really, really weird, though.
Weird's an understatement. I'm not gonna lie to you. That to me would want me to almost get a priest at the house.
I think I kind of just got used to hearing things because ever since I was like little, I would randomly wake up and then I would hear something in my right ear. Either it's my name being called or some word being said. And I never understood why that would happen. And that's just
Right.
something I always had. It always, I don't know, like I wake up at random times even now, and
I guess you could be maybe somewhat of an empath.
it
Yeah.
could be, I don't know. But so maybe that's why hearing those voices made me more curious than scared. It's because I got used to kind of hearing that kind of thing.
Yeah, in your
Yeah.
situation though, in your situation, the first time I heard someone yell my name and I went up to go check, and my mom's asleep, I probably would have I probably would have been petrified.
And I kind of did a little bit of research, and I found a book that was written about like small town hauntings in my area. They had like a preview thing online that I was able to read, and I found the place on my place, and they talked about the stories that people have told me about, like the guy getting the wake up call, the lady who says that she's a medium, but well, she didn't say she was a medium, but she was sensitive and stuff. She talked about going through the house, and at the top of the stairs she saw a girl in a blue dress, thinking that maybe this girl's just very lonely. Like, she sounds very lonely. That's the impression this lady got, and is looking for someone to like
Hang out with, yeah.
hang out with her. And at the time I was around her age. She probably wanted me
And she
to,
was just told by a 5-year-old that she couldn't hang out with them. So yeah, it makes sense
yeah,
that
so
she's trying to
it
hang
could
out with
be
someone
like
her
that.
own age. Yeah, it makes me feel bad. I won't lie. I do feel bad for her, especially if she is really a teenager who just wants someone to hang out with, wants to be heard. I couldn't imagine what that must feel like.
Well,
No one hears you.
I think she's kind of selective too, because when they had all like these weddings and parties and stuff, people don't really have any experiences, or they just don't talk about it. But the one time my mom stayed there, she stayed overnight because there was a wedding going on that she was invited to. And I asked her, like, how did it go? And she goes, nothing happened. But they had like all the rooms were booked, so there was lots of people there. So I think maybe she got a little bit like scared and didn't want to talk to anybody or something like that.
She was pretty quick to answer. Which is, a sign.
Yeah.
Like, nope, don't even bring it up. Nothing happened.
Yeah, she was, nothing happened. I'm like, okay, but a lot of the stories are people who had experiences were by themselves.
Right, and you just never want to leave. If you're at a party, just never go off by yourself. You just never do it, because you're asking for something to show itself.
There was another thing in that book, but it was taken out of the preview. They completely took that out, but it was talking about another experience that somebody had. And I vaguely remember reading about them having the same experience I did, with hearing voices, knocks on the door, chairs moving, that kind of thing. But I wanted to go back and read it, but it's not there anymore.
I wonder if it's actually still in the book, though. Like, if you can get the book or anything.
Well, that's what I did. I tried looking for the book. It's an old book. It's like from 1993. It's like a year younger than me. They did have it on Amazon at one point for a ridiculous amount of money, but I actually found it on eBay the other day for $3.
Did you get it?
I got it. I'm waiting.
Good.
It's supposed to come next week, so I'm gonna find out if what that story is.
You're gonna have to like tell me.
I will. And even to this day, I still have like weird things that happen like in the house I'm living at right now. It's not all the time, but it's every once in a while. The house I'm living in right now, it was built in the 40s, so it's a little bit old. And my landlord and his family live upstairs. Like I can hear them walking around all the time and that kind of thing. But there's times when they decide to go away for a week. And I don't know why. I have 2 roommates. It's always the roommate that lives in the far room like opposite to mine. They always complain that they're hearing like loud footsteps for some reason. I'm like, oh, it's just the landlord upstairs. And they're like, but then recently, like I think it was like earlier this year, I had a roommate that said the same thing. She was hearing footsteps upstairs, but this time my landlord was away. Him and his family were out for the week. And my roommate's like, why are we hearing footsteps why am I hearing footsteps upstairs? That doesn't make sense. They're not supposed to be here. And I thought that, well, maybe they have somebody checking on the house or something like that. So I texted him and I told him that the roommate's hearing footsteps upstairs. And he goes, well, nobody's supposed to be upstairs. We don't have anybody checking the house. So that was a little
either
bit strange.
someone broke in or
Yeah.
ghost.
Well, if they're not supposed to have anybody coming over to check the house, then somebody broke in. So I told him, I said, well, do you think like somebody broke in? And he goes, well, can you go outside and check, make sure our windows are closed and our doors are locked? So I did that. Everything was locked. Everything was closed. It's weird because a lot of previous roommates that I had who lived in that room that roommate was in have said the same thing, but we kind of just shook it off like oh, it's just the landlord upstairs, because sometimes he doesn't always tell us like when he's leaving or when they go do something or leave the house or whatever. At one point, my roommate said she heard their water running while they weren't home.
That
And
definitely
my
is weird.
landlord's like, I don't know what to tell you guys. Like, nobody's supposed to be in the house. Like,
Does he experience things by himself? Like, does he actually like ever tell you about certain things that happen?
no.
No.
And then when he came home, I asked him if there was like anything suspicious in this house. He said no, everything is the way we left it.
Well, I mean, that's good. That's good. That means you haven't been robbed or anything.
Yeah. That's good at least. But the other weird thing that happened, I fell asleep. I was sleeping, and I was going back to my older stories where I randomly wake up and something happens. I woke up at like 3 a.m. for no reason, wide awake. So I tried to go back to bed, and I hear what sounds like a little girl say hello in my right ear. Weird, but I was able to sleep after that. I guess I got used to that.
That's the only explanation I can think of, is you just got used to it. Because, like, I don't know if I could ever get used to something like that, like hearing something. Well, I hear, again, around the house, we do hear someone talk to us every once in a while.
And then, again, I randomly wake up at around the same time, like 2:30, 3 in, kind of. But this time, I feel like somebody's standing in front of me, like, by my bed. I hear this, like it's like somebody was breathing heavily, like a kind of thing, like that. But it sounded like a man was doing it. I don't know how to explain it. It was like a huff, kind of. And then I felt like warm air on my ear, on my right ear. That really scared me.
Like, scared you enough to want to, like, take action and get up and, like, walk out of the room?
It scared me enough that I wanted to turn my TV on, so there was background noise.
Again, you are a lot more braver than probably me, because, like, at that point, I probably would have been petrified, or I would have gotten up and walked out of the room, called someone to come over.
I have nobody to call. I'm kind of by myself. My roommates don't really believe in this stuff either. If they do, they're too scared.
Yeah, to probably want to, act on it or anything like that.
And then, like, a few days later, same thing happens again. I wake up in the middle of the night, but this time I hear like shuffling at the foot of my bed, like really slow shuffling. And then I hear it kind of turn towards like my side of the bed, and then I hear that same huff, that same like breathy huff sound that I heard before. And I don't know why, but out of nowhere, I just say, "Go away." Don't know why I said that, but I felt the need to say that. And whatever it was, it stopped because something was shuffling, and I just like, "Go away." And I haven't had anything happen since.
Right. No, Michael, who used to do the channel with me, actually had a very similar experience, kind of like that one, to where he heard shuffling next to him, and he said, "Get the hell away from me." But
Yeah.
the difference is, after that, he woke everybody up in the house because of his yelling, and they did a Native American seance on him right after. 'Cause, I don't want to be a broken record. I told the story on the last one, but your story kind of reminded me of it. Before that happened, he actually had seen the owner of the house, whose name was Star at the time, standing in the doorway, but he automatically knew that it wasn't Star standing there. So he turned around and then turned back around to notice she was completely gone without any noise whatsoever. And then all of a sudden, next to the bed, he heard shuffling, like a plastic bag being ruffled up.
Yeah, for me, it was like shuffling on carpet because my floor is carpet. So it sounded like somebody was like dragging their feet across my carpet. That's what it sounded like to me.
Yeah, but it's like easy for someone to lose their temper when they're like in a moment where you start hearing someone in the room with you and you know what it is. So that's the only thing you can do is just tell it to go away because you're just not comfortable with it at all. And
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know either.
I have no idea. But nothing happened after that. Like in my room at least, we had some strange things happen like in our living room. I had my friend over and one of my roommates. We were watching a movie in the living room. And we were like halfway through the movie, and I hear our bathtub faucet turn on. It was not like full blast, but it was like halfway turned on. And my friend turns to me. She never had a paranormal experience in her life. She's kind of a skeptic herself, but she turned to me and she goes, "That is the creepiest thing I have ever experienced." Our bathroom was down the hall from our living room where we were sitting, and I could see directly into the bathroom. The lights were turned off, but I didn't see anything there. So, and the water kept going. We were sitting there for like, I don't know, like a minute or so. So I decided to go into the bathroom to see what it was. Right before I get there, the water shuts off. I turn the light on, and there's nothing there. Like,
But you have someone else who experienced it too, so that gives it a lot more.
I had 2 other people experience it with me.
Yeah.
And my
Gives a-
friend saying that's the creepiest thing that she ever witnessed. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, I'm glad more people experienced it than just you, like obviously, because like that.
Yeah.
But that makes it a little bit more freakier too at the same time.
I think we were watching Friday the 13th in the living room.
Nice.
And yeah. And we got like halfway through the movie. I think we were watching the first one. We were like halfway through. And then we hear something go crash in our entryway. I went to go look, and it's my roommate's shoe that like fell off the shoe rack. And at first we were like, okay, the shoe fell off, whatever. So we put it back. We go back to watching the movie. 10 minutes later, hear it crash again, and it's that same shoe that fell off. And at that point, my roommate's like, "I don't want to watch the movie anymore. I want to go to my room. I don't want to be out here." My landlord told me the history of this house, about the previous owner, and he likes telling this story because he thinks it's a little bit weird and kind of funny at the same time.
Okay.
But the whole reason why he bought this house is he wanted to turn it into like a Halloween fun house kind of thing. And so my landlord said when he bought the house, he bought it in like, I think 2002 or something like that. He said the upstairs was painted like not black, but like a dark gray. The whole entire house was painted like a dark gray. And then and then he said that the downstairs here was just every single wall had mirrors. Like there was no part of the wall that didn't have mirrors on it. I live in the basement. That's what that was supposed to be. So the whole idea was you're supposed to go to the haunted house upstairs, and then you're supposed to come here and do the house of mirrors. And it was a thing that this guy was trying to do. But I think it didn't work out so well. So he ended up selling the place, and my landlord bought it. Because of all the mirrors. Like mirrors are supposed to be portals, right?
That's very true. That's very true. They are.
I don't know. And we still have a lot of mirrors in here, even though most of them have been taken out. I have 4 in my room.
You ever think that could be maybe a cause of some
It's crossed
of the
my
things?
mind many times.
like when a mirror faces another mirror. I think that's what's called a vortex. I think that's what that's supposed to be called. Thing where spirits can see their own reflection and enter through to our world is what supposedly it is about. I think what that's supposed to be. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure if you have any mirrors that face each other or not, but
I mean, I kind of do, kind of not. Like one's kind of like up high, and then one's kind of like on the floor, but they are facing each other. It's kind of, I don't know if that.
okay. So I guess
I
there
don't know if
could
that
be
counts.
something. It
Yeah.
might. It might. I don't know either, but it might.
And yeah, I never told anybody about it because people would call me crazy, or like hearing voices is a very common thing with people with mental illnesses too.
Dude, there's no winning. I feel like when it comes to talking about the paranormal, a lot of the times people will just call you crazy, or they'll just say, you're doing it for obvious, attention, and it's just there's no winning, and it's just unfortunate that we live in a world where people just like to just immediately just go after people. This has definitely been very fascinating to hear. I mean, your stories are, in a sense, a lot of them I felt were connected, especially the ones with the teenager who unfortunately died in a very sad, unfortunate way.
Yeah.
That stuff really fascinated me. That stuff was very unsettling. The story about the kid who went upstairs and talked to her.
Yeah, and I think as what the lady said in the book, that she's just lonely. She just wanted a friend or something like
And
that. And
that's
I just happened to be her age at that time.
yeah, and that's exactly that's a good fitting backstory for what she was trying to do there. It sounded like she was trying to get your attention. She was trying to get your attention in any way she felt she could.
Puffy breath, whatever it was. I have no idea what that was. That could have been anything.
Could have been the guy who hung himself.
Oh, I don't know. That was a long time ago, but maybe.
I mean, I'm
Maybe I don't know.
not trying to scare you, but like it's just that what's went through my mind when you told me he was like kind of having a hard time breathing, like it just sounds like something's up with him.
There's probably gonna be more eventually. I don't know when, but
That's fine. That's
I'll
fine.
let you know.
Yeah, definitely let me know. Definitely let me know.